Welcome, I'm Suzanne Phillips. Thanks for joining me again on Psych Up Live. Today we return to the topic of divorce, but with a specific focus. No matter how difficult it feels, don't hate your ex more than you love your children. Divorce is a heartbreaking and stressful event for the whole family, including the kids. But there are many ways that parents can support their children and as they navigate this family transition, from how to tell the children that they will be separating to nesting, supporting two loving households, and how to deal with an uncooperative spouse. To discuss these topics, we are so delighted to have as a return guest Oona Metz, the author of Unhitched, the Essential Divorce Guide for Women, which is coming out this January. She will be discussing some of the most vital ways for parents to help their children through transitioning from one home to two. Oona Metz is a nationally recognized therapist, writer, and speaker who specializes in treating women navigating divorce. Her advice and comments are as applicable, though, to male to our male parents and to parents of any gender. With over 30 years of clinical experience, Oona leads 4 weekly divorce support groups and is the founder of the Beacon Group Fellowship, which trains mental health clinicians throughout the country to lead divorce support groups. Oona has published essays in Psychotherapy Networker, Cognoscenti, Social Work Voice, Social Work Advocates, and other outlets. Her book, Unhitched, The Essential Divorce Guide for Women, will be available in bookstores in January 2026. Oona lives near Boston, Massachusetts with her partner, a handful of pets, and her young adult children have flown the coop, but they visit very often. Oona Metz, it is my pleasure to welcome you back to Psych Up Live.
It's so wonderful to be back and talking with you, Suzanne. I loved our last episode, and I'm really looking forward to this one too, as taking care of children is one of my highest priorities.
Okay, well, this is a very important topic, and I'm so glad you suggested it. The idea of don't hate your ex more than you love your children. Because let's start with the question, how do you tell children that you're separating?
Mhm. Oh, I'm glad we're starting here. I think telling your kids that you're separating or getting divorced is going to be one of the most heartbreaking things you'll do as a parent. And I know that a lot of parents worry about it so much. Um, and one of the things I like to remind parents is that this is just the first time they're going to be talking about it. Sometimes people put so much emphasis on this one conversation that they're having, almost as if it's going to be their only time. And I like
Mm,
to remind them, we're going to keep this first conversation on the shorter side because you're going to be having many, many conversations over a lifetime, pretty much,
mhm.
with your children as they hit different developmental milestones, as things change in the family, as things come up. So it's really an ongoing conversation.
Yeah,
Uh,
it makes sense because think about it. A 6-year-old goes, okay, they don't know really what you mean.
right,
A 16-year-old goes, oh no, I
right,
have to live through this.
right.
So that first round hits
Hmm.
everybody with such surprise, or little ones don't even comprehend it.
That's right.
If a parent unfortunately adds, I'm leaving your mother because she's an idiot, I'm leaving dad because I've had it with him, now we've added another layer of emotional complication.
That's right. That's right. It's so important that parents do whatever they possibly can to get on the same page and to have a story that they give to their children. That's true. That's a true story. But true does not mean that they get the details, right? Children do not need the messy details of adult relationships. So saying things like, we haven't been getting along, we're no longer making each other happy, or we have decided that we are going to be better parents if we live in two different homes, is much preferable to mudslinging the other parent. If people do mudsling the other parent, that impacts the child because the child is part of that parent, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
if they're told that their father is a lazy, no good bum, they're going to take that on themselves too. Does that mean I am too?
Mm. The other thing that happens at the beginning that can be too much for children is so that first comment, Dad and I have not been happy, we haven't been getting along, so we're going to make plans to separate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think children can at that point intake, you'll be living with me for these days, you'll be going to dad for those days, grandma will come on the weekend. So there's just so much the little ones and even the teens can take.
Right.
It's remember an assault to what their life is.
Yeah,
And it may be a very important need to separate, but there's just so much people, adults and children, can take in of emotionally charged information.
that's right. And that's why I suggest that people keep it pretty short in the beginning,
Hmm.
that they don't make promises that they can't keep. I mean, I think the one promise that parents can make to children in a divorce conversation like this is we'll always be your parents and we will always love you. And I
Hmm.
promise you that this is not your fault.
Hmm.
Those are the promises. And what I find is that sometimes people feel guilty that they're worried about their children, they feel guilty, and so they make promises like, but don't worry, we'll still spend every Christmas together, or we'll still go on vacations together. And it comes from a good place. Maybe they believe that in the moment, but over time, that may shift. And so I also encourage parents, don't make promises to your kids that you don't know you're going to be able to keep. Really, the only promise is we're your parents. We love you. We promise we love you. We promise you're still your parents. And this is not your fault.
Hmm. So we want to give plenty of space for children to have questions they may not have at the beginning. Like,
Absolutely.
but I sleep with the dog. Is someone going to take the dog? Or
Mhm.
a teen saying, okay, so now who brings me to practice?
Right.
Uh, don't bother. You know what? Don't bother. I'm
Mhm.
going to go with Katie's mother. So very often you're going to get a pushback from teens. You're going to get a terror from little ones. And it all can't be fixed in the first conversation.
That's right. But what you can say in that first conversation is, we want you to know, we want to hear from you. Whatever questions you have, whatever feelings you have, we are available to talk to you. And I think sometimes parents also forget that they have helped their children through so many transitions already.
Hmm.
We forget you've already helped your child to come home from the hospital, to get potty trained,
Hmm. Hmm.
stop using a bottle, to go to kindergarten. There's so many transitions that happen. And so parents already have a foundation of helping their kids through transitions. And this is another transition, and it's a hard one, but it is a transition. And I think we have I would like to remind parents, you have the skills.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I love it. And you have the resilience.
Yes.
It's just a matter of pacing, and you've had to pace, as you're saying so well, other things.
Yes.
Yeah, the birth of a second child,
Right.
grandma coming or not coming.
Yeah.
So, they've listened to you and you've communicated with them throughout their whole lives. It's such a good point, Una. Now, what happens when someone says, I told the children, but he or she really doesn't want to speak to the children yet? He or she really believes I said negative things, and so he just wants to get the children alone and speak to them alone.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's only so much you can control another person,
Right.
especially another adult, especially one that, you're breaking up, when you're breaking up. But I would really advise, and I think, taking time to say what's best for the children is that both parents do this together. What's best for the children is that you don't throw each other under
Mm.
the bus. And
Uh,
sometimes maybe it's helpful to have a third person say that if, you and your ex or your partner can't
mm.
communicate well. Um,
Right. If the parent won't speak or the parent is yelling, it's worth the other parent reminding the children, remember, daddy's not mad at you, daddy's mad at me.
That's right.
And he may not feel so good now that he can talk about the plan when with his house or the plan or anything, but it doesn't mean he won't maybe be able to speak about it at another time.
That's
That
right.
is, we're better off supporting the other parent than trashing the other parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And saying things like, this is really upsetting for everybody, and everybody's dealing with it in a different way.
So, when in your groups, do you find that most people are stuck with the idea of telling the children? Do they use the approach of telling the children that you just suggested, little steps at a time, not we're packing up this weekend and you're going to spend it? Okay, so from the look on your face, I could see
Yeah.
that's not the approach. But in
I mean, I
fairness,
think with smaller kids, Suzanne, I think when kids are younger, they don't need a ton of lead up time because they don't really understand.
yes,
So if you say in 6 months we're going to be getting divorced, they have no idea what that means, and
yes.
it's too long of a time for them to wait and understand that. But also, you don't want to say tomorrow we're, going to pack up and leave and move into a different apartment. So I think you really want to think about the developmental, um, where each of your kids are developmentally.
Hmm. So
Mm.
that brings us to, we will expect that even though a child may not verbalize it, maybe we'll see bedwetting, or maybe we'll see a fear of going to school, or maybe a teen will become very, very oppositional or want to spend time over the friends. That is, remember, they're all responding to the same trauma because the end of a marriage is a trauma. People go into marriage with the forever after.
That's right.
And when it doesn't work that way, no matter what, it's a traumatic event. So um, it's not worth the parent blaming themselves for the reaction, but just to know that how could it be any other way?
Right.
If,
And
if it,
oftentimes kids, I mean, kids and adults, frankly, but a lot of times kids express their feelings with the behavior.
hmm hmm
And I really also counsel parents to respond to the feeling that they guess is behind the behavior rather than the behavior. So if the kid is throwing a tantrum, soon after you tell them to say, rather than saying, stop throwing this tantrum, to say, I can see how upset you are. This
hmm
is such
hmm
an upsetting time. And
mm,
I can see that you are really sad and you are really mad right now.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It is the attunement to whatever you see, hear, or observe about the children in terms of letting them know you understand this is not such an easy time for you.
yeah,
And for
yeah.
them and for them. So what do we think is the best approach to use if the spouse remains uncooperative about talking with the kids and only blames you when he
Mm-hmm,
speaks to the kids or when she speaks to the kids?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think really supporting that person's parenting. And so saying, I know that you're angry at me. What I also know is that you're a really good parent and you care about our children. Sometimes you might not be able to say, I know you're a good parent, but you
But
could
you can try. Yeah.
try, or you could say, I know that you care about our children.
hmm
And I know, because I know that you care about our children, I know that you want to do what's best for them. And we both know that it's not best for them, for us, for either of us to be talking badly about each other. So really using that we language rather than just, you can't tell them this, you can't, you're a terrible person because you did this, but supporting their wish to be a good parent, because I do believe that just about every parent wants to be a good parent.
I do too. Yes, I do
And
too.
so I think supporting their wish to be a good parent and using a lot of that we language. I know that we are very upset right now. I know we are angry at each other, but we need to do what's best for our kids.
Mm. So it's in some ways you invite more appropriate behavior
Mhm.
by sending the message that I know you love our kids.
Yes.
And although the person may not react in that conversation,
Mhm.
as we've seen with groups, as we've seen with couples, it doesn't mean they won't at another time.
That's right. It doesn't mean
Bec-
they're not taking it in.
yes, the fact that someone doesn't say great idea, it's
Right, right.
very unlikely that
Yeah.
they're going to say great idea,
Yeah.
but it means A, you haven't trashed them, you've respected them, and you've underscored that you believe they love the children.
Right. That's right.
And that dilutes some of the hostility because in a divorce situation, it can be so contentious.
Mm.
Everyone feels the other person hates them, demeans them. And so what you've just done is the opposite of that,
That's right.
which
That's
is really, really important.
right.
What would you say, Una, from the groups you've run, is the age of the children that have the hardest time with divorce?
I think a lot of it depends on who the kid is and what the divorce is like. I think it can be hard for those preteen, in those preteen years. Obviously, it's very hard if there's an infant involved, because an infant really needs to build an attachment to both parents. Um,
Mm,
so that one can be hard. Um, and then again, the preteen years also can be hard because there's so much going on there with they have so much else going on with social things and hormone things and their own identity. So, but I think it can be hard no matter what. And for certain kids, if certain kids have um, some rigidity to them or have difficulty with transitions, no matter what age they are. If kids have difficulty with transitions, it can be hard for them too.
mm. I think another factor that we were talking about it a little bit before the show that really complicates this very beginning phase of mom and dad are separating, it's not your fault, is when either parent decides that the child should meet their new partner or their new potential partner.
Mm,
Um, this is over the many years that I've worked, whether it's a college student or a teenager, they're like, who are these people? I don't want to know these people. I don't want to live in a house with this person. So that the imposition of someone that's going to replace mom to dad or dad to mom is very confusing and upsetting for kids.
right. Right. The adult can be very excited about having a new partner, but the children are rarely very excited
Mm,
about having a new adult in their life, and especially an adult that takes away from the attention of the parent, right?
mm. In one case, it became so complicated because the new adult who was being introduced came with children.
Mm,
So when the children of the first parents were told, and then you're going to live in a house with new partner at the time, and these children, that was off the charts for the kids.
yeah,
I don't want to live with them. Why would I live with them?
right, right, right.
So
Yeah,
we at the beginning we're trying to suggest that it takes adjusting. It
yes,
takes time. Kids barely understand what the parents are talking about when this is announced, much less figuring a way to cope with it.
right, right.
It's the reason when you read about the impact of divorce on children and education, it's really not so much that there was a divorce, but there's anxiety attached. So, of course, they leave the backpack at the other house.
Yeah.
Of course, it's hard. Adults who are stressed can't do their work or study or as
Mm,
well as they could if they didn't have a sudden crisis going on.
that's
I think
absolutely
it's the same is true of children.
hmm That's right. I like to think about, so if there's two parents and two children, and then there's a divorce and the kids are going back and forth, there's really two new families of three people each, right? One
Hmm.
parent and two kids, one parent and two kids. And those new three-person families, the two of them, need a chance to really bond to each other, right? They're a whole new family in a way. So they
Hmm.
need a chance to really bond for quite some time before any new person is introduced into.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, if anything, if any message we're saying is, don't emotionally rush this.
Right, right.
Divorces take time.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's been such a painful marriage. You're so eager to be with someone who you really feel loves you.
Yep,
But children are not just baggage, so they have to find a way to adjust. They're not madly in love with this new partner. They
right.
still love mommy or daddy, so they're in a little bit of a bind here.
Yes, yep, yep. So I always suggest that people go very slowly. And it takes a long time to know a new partner, right? And
Mhm.
so the other thing is you don't want to get into a situation where you're introducing your kids to your new partner and then, oh, it turns out that wasn't the right
And
person.
that happens.
And
That
gotta
happens.
go to meet somebody else. Okay, now we're gonna introduce the kids to another new person. Nope, that one didn't work out either. So I think it is important to take some time to really get to know somebody um, when you're
I
doing.
I think it's also important that the children feel the presence of each of the parents with them alone, now that the parents are separated, in a way that makes them feel very loved and important.
Yes.
If the new person is introduced too soon, the
Mhm.
message is to dad, dad really likes that person, but does dad still like me?
Right.
So there's a double job there
Yes.
to keep the loving very, very clear to the child, even as you're introducing someone who you feel will make your life happy and will make you happy.
Right.
The children are not just furniture.
That's right.
And
And I think important to say that, more loving adults in a child's life is a good thing.
yes,
So
yes,
many times, step families work out really nicely,
it's
and
true.
it'd be wonderful to have more loving adults in a child's life, but to really be careful and take it slow,
Hmm.
to promote the best success for that.
Now, one thing we wanted to speak about was how do you navigate those situations where the child is with the mom or the child is with the father, visitations that you know from the way the child returns do not go well.
Hmm. Hmm. This is such a good one, and it's so hard as a parent to not have access to your child. Say your child is at the other parent's house for the weekend and you don't know what's going on. Maybe they're too young to have a phone, so you have no access. And I think, Suzanne, one of the things that's so important is kind of figuring out like what's a parenting difference that maybe you don't like, but it's just a difference versus like what's a safety issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
maybe the kid goes to bed a little later at the other parent's house. Maybe the food isn't quite so organic at the other parent's house. Maybe they watch a little extra TV or YouTube at the other parent's house. That could be something that's distressing to you, but it doesn't rise to the level of a safety issue.
Right, right.
Um, there's
We're
a
gonna
certain way we have to. Oh, you're gonna.
we're gonna take a break because I want you to come right back to this topic. We're gonna take a break. You've been listening to Psych Up Live, and we're here with expert Oona Metz, the author of the upcoming book Unhitched, the Essential Divorce Guide for Women. Listen in to some of her invaluable advice as she shares from running many, many groups over many years with women dealing with divorce. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Psych Up Live, and we're so fortunate to have as a returning guest social worker, group leader, Oona Metz, the author of the upcoming book, Unhitched, the Essential Divorce Guide for Women. Oona and I were just talking about a topic that really can kind of puzzle us and uh, really stop things that we want to figure out how to handle. And it's the question of, let's take a teen, for instance. A teen decides in the midst of this divorce that she's heard about, she's staying at her friend's house. She's not dealing with either parent. So the question becomes, how does a parent handle this? The mother is letting it happen. The father is saying, I don't agree with this. Those are not her parents. I don't know why she's not staying with you. She could play soccer with that kid, but I don't know why she can't come home at night. I don't like it. So, what do you think? How can the mother approach this? How can the father make a suggestion?
Mhm. Great question. And of course, it depends. But I don't think it's a bad thing if a teenager wants to spend a little bit of time over at a friend's house, a few days, a week or so. But I think it's an important communication. They're communicating something important to the parents that they don't feel comfortable in the house. And what is the reason for that? Is the parent very depressed and can't get out of bed in the morning to be around for breakfast? Is the parent drinking too much and the child doesn't want to see that? Are the parents fighting, even if they're not together, they're fighting every night on the phone about the divorce and the kid does. So I think there's something important that's being communicated. And I think it would be important to talk with the teenager and find out what is it that makes it hard to be at home and how can we work to get you back here? Um, and it may be
Mhm.
something that really, it's probably something the parents need to change, not something that the child needs to change.
Mm. And
Right.
maybe it need not, I love what you're saying. It need not be an all or none. Like well, I don't have a problem. We don't have a problem with you at
Right.
Jamie's house, and Jamie can come here. I don't want Jamie to come here. Okay. But we don't have a problem with you going to Jamie's, but we want you to know that we need to know if there's something we're doing here, just what you said, Una, that really is either embarrassing you, making you anxious, or in some way making home not safe.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Now, sometimes a teen will talk in front of a counselor or a therapist.
Yep.
If they have, especially if the therapist is willing to be sort of their voice with the
Yes.
parents. So, and sometimes that's an important move because, in fairness to parents, they don't quite know what to say at times.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it can be really useful to have a third party available to kind of facilitate that conversation, especially if it's somebody who the teenager feels is on their side.
Mm-hmm. But it's a complicated situation. Um, one of my son's friends once came back from college and said, "So I'm not going home. I'm
Mm.
going to stay here."
Oh,
Okay. But it had to do with that the parents had been divorced while he was at school. And so it was too shocking, too much. And I knew the mother, so I could intervene somewhat. But my heart went out to him because when you think you're coming home to something and it's already changed, it's hard. And that's where we know parents may not have the words, but if you don't have the words, seek some help to find someone who could help you with that.
yes, absolutely.
Now, we were talking during the break when people divorce, we forget all the important things to kids like pets.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you negotiate that?
Right. I mean, there are many children and many pets who are very, very bonded, and pets can be a source of so much support to a child when they're going through anything that's stressful or difficult. And so I think it's important to think about, what happens to the pets when, people move into two different homes. Do the pets go back and forth with the kids? The kids you can't take your big dog to school with you,
Yeah.
but could the dog go back and forth or not? Um, and here's what I've seen. Um, Dogs are much more amenable. Dogs are much more connected to people, and cats are much more connected to a place.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Cats have a harder time going back and forth. They get kind of discombobulated, whereas I think many dogs are so connected to people that they could do it. And if the divorce is relatively amicable, people can work that out.
Hmm.
But I think it does take a lot of coordination um, and thoughtfulness about it. Vet bills are incredibly expensive. I spent $5,000 on my cat this summer because it had a kidney failure. So thinking beforehand about, are we splitting the vet bills? What happens when somebody goes on vacation? Like really working out what the schedule is going to be, but also what the care is going to be and the cost. So if it's a high conflict divorce, forget it. You can't have the dog or any other pet going back and forth because
Hmm.
it's going to create yet another
Yes.
opportunity for there to be conflict. I can't
Hmm.
believe you brought the dog back and that you didn't brush the dog or you've brought the wrong leash, or it's just going to create more conflict. But if there's an amicable enough divorce, that can be really nice for the kids to be able to
Hmm.
have their
Hmm.
pet with them, or for the parents to get another pet is another way to do it, especially the parent who moves out of the
Hmm.
family home to say,
Right.
we're going to this apartment, but guess what? We're going to go this weekend. We're going to go down to the shelter. We're going to pick out a cat, and that's going to be your special cat that you get to have when you're here at this house.
Hmm. Really important, love object.
Yeah.
So, when we think about all that people have to do and negotiate psychologically with divorce, because they're dealing with their own pain, their own hopes for a different future, a shock in some cases that, what?
Mhm.
I never saw anything that would make me think she was having an affair. So there's a lot of trauma and uncertainty at the beginning, which makes it difficult, of course, for someone to not only take care of themselves, but as most parents want to first take care of their children. They don't even have the words. Um, and the other piece that goes with this is often a great deal of embarrassment on the part of teenagers, especially, because they do understand a bit more that the parents are breaking up. So the question is, how do we intervene? How do we help those kids? Because very often their school grades go down, and it's a matter of, just like with adults in a working situation, if they're dealing with a crisis at home, the quality of their work may very much be impaired. So, what do you recommend if someone says, my son or my daughter is so embarrassed that I'm going through the divorce, they don't want me to tell anybody, they don't want any of their friends to know? How would you intervene with that?
Mm-hmm. So, a couple of things. I mean, I think, if especially if schoolwork isn't being impacted, but I think for younger kids, even if schoolwork isn't being impacted, I think it's important for parents to let teachers and guidance counselor know.
Hmm.
For teenagers, if teenagers are doing just fine in school, there may not be a need to tell the guidance counselor because that they may find that that's even more
Yes,
embarrassing.
right.
Think if their grades are suffering in any way or their friendships or their activities are suffering, I do think it's important for parents to bring in other adults. And as we were talking about before, it can be great to get a therapist on board. I'm somebody who believes I think a teenager's first um, time in therapy should be a positive time so that they have that sense of therapy for the rest of their lives.
Hmm.
And so I don't think we should force teenagers to go to therapy unless they're really in danger. If it's a safety issue, yes, they need to be. But if you can offer it and they accept it, then that's great. If you offer it and they say no, then I would offer it again in a couple of months, just keep offering it every couple of months. And then I'd also try to find somebody else, another adult that they can talk to. So maybe it's a coach, or maybe they really love their English teacher, or they have a favorite uncle, you know. And also finding other people, if you know anybody else who's been through a divorce, a kid, so maybe they have a cousin.
Hmm. Hmm.
Cousin's been through a divorce, but it's been a while and they've come out the other side and they're doing well. Maybe you could suggest they talk to the cousin.
Great, great suggestions.
Finding somebody else that they can also talk to.
Mm, really good suggestions. Another thing that comes to mind is, you might fall in love with someone, you're going to end your marriage, and there's an expectation that your children should fall in love with this person.
Mm,
And there's a push that Jim is really a great guy. He loves kids, and your children are not taking the bait.
mm,
And or Marie is a wonderful person. She bakes. You're going to bake with her. You're going, no, I'm not baking with Marie. So
mm.
how do we, as adults, if we're in the midst of a divorce, recognize time is our friend in terms of slowing down the expected connection of children with a new partner?
Mhm, mhm. Yes, it's so important. That's such an important point that you're making. And I do really think those kids, they need time to bond to their parent and their new family system before a new person comes in, and for it not to be forced, for it to start out very slowly when you introduce a new partner.
Hmm. In one case, I worked so many years with people divorcing and reconnecting with other people. The man was very smart. He would bring a children's book and
Uh-huh.
just put it on the table. He didn't say anything. He didn't force anything. And little by little, the
Uh-huh.
little ones would pick up the book, look at the book, and so he was the bookman.
Yeah,
But nobody was forcing them to fall in love with the bookman or to have him replace daddy. And so sometimes you
very.
really have to be a little creative about, or you know what, you're sitting with a teen boy and football's on and you're just watching it.
That's right.
And you make comment. You don't have to tell him I'm your new dad or anything like that. But you've got to go slow with having children connect with a new love object of a parent, because with the feeling of, oh, I like that guy who comes.
Mhm.
Or you don't want the guilt of, but I love daddy more. You don't want to add contention or confusion to children's emotional bonds. So slow is always better. And you might have to, if you're the divorcing parent, coach the new person,
That's right. That's right.
who wants to come in and da da da, and you really want to say to them, go slow,
Well,
lead, let your presence be known by some little something or other, but we got to go slow on this.
and
Now,
especially, I mean, now we're starting to get into like step parenting, but especially that the new person never, ever, ever does discipline for the.
absolutely.
I mean, you need to put so, as I always say, you need to put so much money into that bank before you make a withdrawal. You have to have
That's,
so many positive interactions with a stepchild before you do any kind of discipline at all. I
and
mean,
even then you would question it and want the parent of the child to be
absolutely.
in charge of that. So that brings us to the topic of, okay, I'm involved in a divorce and I have a little girl, and I no longer trust what's happening on the visitations. I pack a bag for her, I put all the clothes in for the weekend, and she comes back on Sunday, same clothes as she had on Friday afternoon. None of the snacks have been eaten. Nobody has opened the suntan lotion. She's burnt. She's a mess. So where do I go from there, Una?
So the first thing that I would do is I would actually contact the other parent and find out what happened, because I think there's a little bit of a danger in this situation to make an assumption and to jump to conclusions of,
Okay.
oh my God, this kid stayed in the same clothes the entire weekend, didn't eat anything. Well, what if actually what happened is they went in that clothes, then they wore new clothes the next day, and then the other parent washed their clothes and sent them home. But maybe they got a little dirty on the play date right before they got home, or, or the snacks weren't eaten because they all went out to dinner and the child ate plenty for dinner. So I think really checking in first
Okay.
before you make that assumption and before you, jump to conclusions is really, really important. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and then really again kind of being able to use that the I know how much we both really want to be good parents, and I know how important it is to little Sally that she's able to wear clean clothes. And sometimes she gets embarrassed, and I know it happens at my house sometimes too. She'll get embarrassed if she has to go out and her pants are dirty. So I know that we both really want what's best for her. So kind of really, again, leaning on the other parent's wish to be a good parent and using that we language rather than you are so bad because you put her in the dirty clothes and you're awful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knew
Mm-hmm.
you were going to do that. You always do that,
Right. Which
because
is the reason for the divorce.
right.
Um, well, it's great what you're saying, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to say, if it happens repeatedly,
Right.
despite the conversation, now you're in a tricky situation.
Mhm.
The little one is really oblivious to what it is or what's going on. Um, but it does happen sometimes where you have to really think twice about the visitation, which of course then brings in lawyers.
Right.
But I would say to people, you give it every benefit of the doubt. You do the talking that you say. In one case, someone used a location tracker in the kid's sneaker because she had a feeling the kid was not going where the person said the kid was going. But most people try to give the other parent the benefit of the doubt, just as you did. And I think that makes a lot of sense because what we never say is who has practice with separate parenting when they have always been working with a partner. So now the dad doesn't know where this stuff is. The kid's backpack is in the car. So we've got to give people some benefit of the doubt that this is painful for them, chaotic for them. They did lose the homework. It is the fourth time. But, if we keep supporting the other parent who we may no longer feel we love, but nonetheless is loving our child, we're in a better position than immediately calling a lawyer.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say also, as hard as it can be sometimes, to keep your own sense of your own integrity intact. So I think sometimes these divorces can be so contentious. So for instance, here's a good example. There's young children, there's a very recent divorce, and the mom has the kids do a birthday card for the dad, make a because that's what she always did when they were married. And so she knows the birthday's coming up. The kids can't buy their own card, so she sits down with them and has them do a card, right? And he may say thank you or not, but then her birthday comes around, nothing. She
Mhm.
doesn't get anything. He doesn't do the same thing. But instead of saying, you know what, fine, if he's not going to do it, I'm not going to do it either. That's like taking revenge.
Yeah,
That's a good example of hating your ex more than you love your child.
yes, that's a perfect example.
You don't have to give him a birthday card, right? This is not about him and you. You're helping your children. You're helping your children to develop good skills, empathy, generosity. You're helping your kids to be connected to their other parent by helping them do the birthday card, right? And so it's not a time to get revenge. It's a time to keep hold of your own integrity and remind yourself, who are you doing this for? Right?
Well, it also speaks to expectations of someone you're divorcing who is obviously different than you or not never read you well from the beginning. So why would he read you well now? So, but it's such a great point because there's so much pain about losing someone who once loved you that little things
Mhm.
become big things. But your point is such a good one for the sake of the children and even in terms of your own healing.
Yeah,
He's never going to be that person.
right. But you keep being the person you are.
Yes,
Don't
yes,
don't get revenge by being.
yes.
that person, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it speaks to the fact that, you know, we know how many divorces there are. I'm from a divorced home. I mean, many, many people are. And it's a part of the culture, it's a part of people's lives.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to mean everything in the world will be terrible for the children or the partners will go on unhappy for the rest of their lives. In many ways, it's the oh my God to thank God story.
That's right.
Where people just readjusted their lives, and as long as they keep their eye on their children,
Mhm.
usually they can come through it.
That's right.
In those cases where you really feel, though, that your child could be in danger from neglect
Mhm.
or from something that happens with the other parent, then I think you don't wait.
That's right. If there's a real safety issue, or you suspect that there's a real safety issue, I think you have to get other people involved. And it
Hmm.
going back to a mediator that you used, it may be contacting an attorney. It may be that you have to go back to court, but we do have to protect children. And if there's a safety issue, which again is not, you know, that the grapes weren't organic, right? Or that the kids stayed up a half an hour too late. If there is a real safety issue, you have to get other people involved.
So we have a few minutes to close. I'm so grateful that you came back on. I love speaking to you, Una. What take-home message would you give to our listeners out there?
Mhm. I think the take home message is the same message that we began the show with, which is really as hard as it can be. Don't hate your ex more than you love your child. And really, I mean, parenting is such an important journey and it has so many different steps to it. You have the skills. You have the skills and to take care of your child. You've seen your child through many, many transitions and use those skills now to help your child through this transition, including helping yourself. Because, a happy parent makes a happy child. An unhappy parent, it's very hard to be a happy child if you have an unhappy parent. So, really work on making yourself happy.
Hmm.
Uh,
And both Una and I are group people, and I can't tell you how many times people come into a group in the midst of a divorce and they turn to someone and say, what she said is what I feel. So
yes,
that don't do it alone. If you
don't.
feel you need support,
Yes. Ask for help, get support, see a therapist, join a group. I have a ton of free resources on my website, which is www.unametz.com, all free resources there, online groups, in-person groups,
yes, it's true.
books. I have a whole list of books for kids on my website as well, but
Good.
don't hesitate to reach out. This is so important.
Okay. I want to thank you again, and I want to thank my listeners for tuning in again. Remember, you can hear this and any prior show as a podcast on my host site, my website, and the podcast app of your iPhone. All the platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Amazon Audible, will carry this also. Until next week, please be safe, thanks, and be listening.